Maybe you have experienced the most awful of launch experiences where you launch your program to crickets. Your expectations are not met, and you can feel like such a failure. And I'm here to say you are not a failure. You did not fail because of the fact that you actually launched, and that is more than a lot of people do. But I get how much it can hurt, how much it can sting. One of my very first launches, I had put so much expectations. I had spent months preparing, and when it didn't work, I'm not joking when I say I spent days crying in bed and feeling like such a failure and just wanting to give up and going, man, I've spent like 9 months doing this and I just can't get it right. Like, this isn't for me. And the thing is that I want you to remember and I want you to take away more than anything else, this is one launch. Every launch that you do is just an isolated event, and you are going to be able to do more launches again for different products, for the same product. So even if you didn't get a single person signing up from your launch, that does not mean you have to start over, quit the business, go and start Googling goat farms or jobs at Aldi. There is hope. There are things that you can do to take information from it so that once you are past the emotion, and sometimes you just got to let yourself feel it, because it is really devastating when you are selling you're selling your information, your coaching, your membership, your course product that is literally selling you. So when no one buys, it can feel like such a personal rejection. But there is going to be so much data there. You do not need to act on every data point. I'm just going to give you a few data points that you can look at and things that you can look at throughout your launch process, all the way start to finish, for things that you can tweak, improve, and change next time. Because it does not matter whether you've had a $1 launch or a $1 million launch, there's always going to be things that you can learn from it next time. And a launch debrief, where you go back and look at that information once you're in the data mindset, not the emotional mindset, is a fantastic thing to do regardless of the outcome. But it is even more critical if your launch was a big flop and you're just feeling really devastated about it all. But do just remember that every launch is just one launch. That is one launch in many, and there's always going to be more in the future. So the first thing that I want to look at is, let me just pop this up onto the screen. There's kind of two general main reasons why launches don't meet your expectations. And I do just want to give a caveat with this. With this, I am talking live launches where it is something that you're doing over a period of time and there is like a launch window. So we're not talking evergreen launches, although some of this is definitely applicable across that. You've got more time to fix and change things with evergreen launches than you do with live launches. But the two main reasons why launches can not meet your expectations is there simply was not enough people seeing it, not enough visibility, not enough eyes on your offer. Either you had too small of an audience, or you just weren't reaching that audience enough. They weren't hearing the message enough times in order to make a buying decision. And the other option is just that something was off with the actual offer itself, the messaging, or the trust factors. People didn't know you well enough in order to make a buying decision. Now, some of that can have to do with pricing as well. The higher the price, the more trust factors to make a buying decision. But there are so many different places as well that all of those things can come into play. So let's assume that you are that you have done or are going to do a launch event, such as a webinar. Now, I'm going to just keep referring to the word webinar, but when I'm talking about that, I mean webinar, challenge, video series, like whatever type of launch event that you're doing, replace that, because it's the same kind of thing regardless. Usually when there is an event, you want people to sign up for the event so that you get essentially a launch list of people who are very interested. And those are the people that you will send the majority of your sales messages about your final program. So that may not be everyone on your list. You could have 10,000 people on your list and maybe only 500 or 1,000 of them are going to sign up for your launch event because there's only that many people interested in that particular thing that you are doing. So when you're looking at conversion rates, which is how many people see something and then go on to sign up for it, just remember like what sort of what they're coming from. Like, is that say 1,000 people that have already expressed a significant interest in that thing, or is it 1,000 people that at some point in time have expressed a vague interest in you or what you do? The warmer people are, the higher your conversion rate generally is. But before you even get to that launch event, I want you to consider what you were doing before the launch event. Now, I am very, very guilty of not doing this because I'm the impatient type of person. I'm like, oh, I'm going to launch something, and I tend to just jump into it. But if you are wanting to have that big launch, like, a lot of the reasons why we do these big launch campaigns and why a lot of people swear by launching is it can be a pretty significant amount of money that you're able to bring into your business through doing a launch. You create a lot of hype, a lot of interest, and you sell in that really short window. And to make that as successful as possible, you will incorporate some kind of pre-launch campaign. So it won't just come out of the blue. You will be doing things in the weeks and hopefully even months leading up to your pre-launch and like to your launch event and your actual, selling of your program in order to get people through that sort of buying decision funnel to help them understand that there is a problem and maybe they have that problem and that there are solutions out there, helping to get them to a point where they're going, you know what, maybe I should do something about this. And it's not just acknowledging that problem, but it's to get them to going, man, I could change this. This could be something that, that if I invest a little bit of money and time in, there could be a solution to help me fix this. And a lot of that is done in that pre-launch period. So it's kind of like seeding what comes before the actual launch. Now, the actual content of that is going to really be dependent on your niche and your audience, but it's kind of like that teasing that comes out before you actually launch anything. And I'll give you an example from, say, the movie industry, because a lot of launching can be, really looked at in parallels with that. Say there's a new Marvel movie coming out, months and months and months before any even dates of when that is going to hit the movies, they'll start dropping teasers. They'll start talking about, potential storylines. They'll maybe start talking about the actors that are being cast for the roles. They will start to build up a little bit of talk in the media before even they're like, hey, this is going to be coming in 2 months. Like all of that stuff will happen way before anything is officially launched. Look at the Nintendo Switch 2 release. Stuff was dropping for that back in January, and it's only just come into shops now with like little sneak peeks of what it's going to look like. People, I assume Nintendo was dropping samples or information to industry people so that they could start talking about it and getting in the news. That's the pre-launch. It's not, hey, come and buy it or register for anything. It's just sort of, getting people thinking about it and knowing that it is coming. So first thing to look at, did you do pre-launch at all? Like, did you go through that nurturing process, and how long did you do it for? What sort of content were you releasing, and how related was that to your actual program? Were you building that kind of problem awareness around what it is specifically that your program will do for someone? Were you showing up consistently, or was it just that you dropped an email or two and just kind of a hint or a PS and that was it? Like, how much were you actually promoting during that pre-launch period? And just remember that, if you are launching multiple times a year, then you're kind of going to be seeding that all the time. But if you're only doing 1 or 2 launches a year, or if this is a brand new program, the longer you can allow for that pre-launch, the better. But if you aren't someone who's going to do it, like one day I will commit to doing a pre-launch period, but generally I don't do a whole lot of pre-launch. So I need to adjust my expectations accordingly. So that's something to consider as well. It's like the pre-launch period can help you set those expectations. Then we go to the actual launch event itself, the webinar, the challenge, video series, whatever it is that you are doing. How many people actually signed up for it? Like, this is where you need to get some numbers. How much promotion of that launch event, the webinar, etc., did you do? Like, so how many people signed up, and how much were you promoting that? Was that something where you just sent a handful of emails and that was it? Was it something where you were talking about it, every day on social media, and you had podcast episodes and YouTube videos and blog posts, and pretty much doing as much as you can to get that as widely known as possible that was coming? Did you have affiliates involved? Were you sort of doing things to get that visibility on that event? And then of that, a couple of things as well. How closely tied was the topic of that thing to your actual product? Was it something where it's a natural next progression? If someone learns what they're going to learn in your launch event, that's going to lead them into your program, or was it something that was a bit disconnected from that? And also looking at, in terms of how many people signed up, how many people were clicking, like what was the conversion rate of people that landed on your page to actually sign up. If it was really, really low, then obviously there was some kind of messaging mismatch. If you were sending out emails and lots of people were clicking on the emails, but not a lot of people were signing up, or if you noticed that there was a lot of, you were running ads or something and you were getting a lot of people click on the ads, but not a lot of people signing up, maybe there was something just missing in what you were saying in the emails or the ads, and then what people were seeing on the page. Maybe it wasn't really clear on that actual registration page what the outcome was. I certainly recommend, if you have the time to do it, and if you have the inclination or potentially the budget, if you are running ads, you can look at doing different versions of that registration page, because that is a really key page. Sometimes you can do short, like just a very short, simple, like one section, and then sometimes you can do longer, and you can do an A/B test, especially if you're using something like Kajabi, and actually test what is working better. Or you can do things like test the headlines, have the same page but have two different headlines. I wouldn't recommend changing everything. Like when you're doing A/B testing, it's better to test like long versus short, but keep the copy the same, or test two different kind of headline versions and see what is going to capture people's attention, what is going to make them sign up. Sometimes I've seen on people's registration pages for webinars or challenges, the focus is about the webinar, like register for the masterclass, free masterclass. That's the focus, not what the masterclass is going to enable someone to do. So making sure that that copy is really aligned with the outcome and not what it is. Because if you've got 3 lines of text and 2 of them kind of say the same thing, and it's like, join me for the free masterclass, which isn't really telling someone what that is, or, join me for this free training on growing your business, or something that's kind of a vague outcome, then that can impact your registrations as well. So if your page was not converting well, or is not converting well, if you're mid-launch, then look at changing that copy and see if you can do things to improve it and make sure that you're really focusing on the benefit for the person who is seeing that page. And as well, a thing to review back, and this is something that again, it's not your fault, it takes time and practice. If it was your first time ever doing a webinar or a training, it is completely normal that may feel really awkward at that transition point when you go from teaching to selling. I have reviewed a lot of people's webinar slides over the years, and it's often the part where people are really confident when they do the actual selling, the teaching part, because this is the thing they know and love, and they're going along great, and then they will either get to the transition where you start to tell people about your program and get really awkward and completely sort of change how they're talking about it. So it feels like, a gap or a break because you're not confident selling your product. Or you can do my very first webinar. I think at the end of the teaching, I was like, okay, and if you want to know more, I've got a course. There's a link there. Thanks. And just sort of really undersold it. Like, remember the purpose of your webinar, your challenge, your video series, your event, whatever it is that you're doing. Ultimately, the purpose is to give someone the information they need to make a decision about your program, but to let them know that there is a program and how helpful and beneficial it's going to be. So practicing that sometimes can be helpful, but also if you're new to doing it, just appreciate that it's going to take a few goes. Like, the more you do it, the more you're going to get comfortable. And sometimes it could just be a case of doing the exact same webinar. It doesn't mean you need to change the entire webinar. Sometimes you just got to get into a flow and present the same webinar a number of times, and then you'll start to feel more confident presenting webinars in general, or you'll feel more confident when you get to that bridge. And maybe that's something that you can do before the webinar if you are new, or even if you're doing some kind of sales thing as part of your challenge, or however you're selling, is try and get yourself used to that transition point when you're letting people know about your offer. So it doesn't feel like there's this awkward point, like this cliff where you kind of fall off and your whole sort of demeanor changes. So review your slides and see if there is a way where you can practice. And when I first started doing webinars, I literally scripted that part out and practiced it a few times because I felt like such a dork and I felt really uncomfortable. The first time that I did a webinar, I freaked out so badly. I was sweating, my whole face and neck was red, and I talked so fast and I could hardly breathe because it's so stressful. You're trying to manage all the webinar software, plus do the content, plus do the selling, and it's a lot. So give yourself some grace. appreciate that it is going to get better as you do go along, and don't feel afraid to do additional things after that. If that was awkward and you're like, oh, you can do things like host another webinar, like host be like, hey, I'm bringing this back, we're going to do round 2, so if you missed it the first time, come and join me, I'll be at 9 o'clock this day doing the webinar. You can do other things like, hey, I talked about my program, do you want to have a look around? I'm going to host an informal Zoom and invite people to that. Like you can do things to resurrect it in a way that can help you to feel more comfortable and confident. But do know that the more you practice, the more you do it, the easier that it will get. The other thing as well is making sure that it's very, very obvious to someone what the next step is, because when you are teaching, bringing in references to your program and bringing in references to the type of work that you do throughout means you don't have to wait just till the very end to be selling. You can talk about something as you are teaching it, and then you say, I go into this in so much more depth in module 3 of my program, and just give a little hint throughout it. You can talk about your students' experiences and testimonials through your webinar and through your challenge content as you're doing that the whole time, and not just leave it to the end and make it in that kind of more scripted part, so that it flows more naturally as well. Next would be, let's move on to the actual launch period itself. Did you promote this enough? And this is talking about your actual event and your launch and your sales window, because we've got these separate phases, and it can feel like like if you get exhausted just in the webinar promotion phase, and then you've got to go, man, I've got like another 10 days that this card is open, I've got to keep the energy up. That can be really challenging. But when I say enough, pretty much I mean enough is as many times as you possibly can, because most people, when they come to me and they talk about their launches not working, when we actually break it down, it's like, okay, how many social media posts did you do over the entire period in each phase, in the pre-launch, in the event promotion, and in the actual cart open? Like, what were you doing to promote it? And what was the content of those emails? What were the social media posts that you do? Did you do anything outside of that? Were you promoting on other channels? Were you promoting on multiple social media channels, or just one? And if you are promoting, say, on a social media channel, how many followers do you have? How many people are actually seeing those posts? How many people were opening your emails and clicking through? Like, actually get into those numbers so that you can try and work out the effectiveness, because you may have been promoting like crazy and it may have felt like you were just nonstop with your promotion, but maybe it just wasn't cutting through. Maybe there was something that wasn't landing in the messaging. Sometimes I have experienced myself when I've been trying to use ChatGPT to draft content like social media posts and or emails. And I've seen this a little bit with clients, and I've seen it happening sort of over the last 6 to 12 months when I am getting emails where people are promoting programs, because I'm on a lot of email lists, is that all of the emails, like maybe you're writing 7 emails, but they all have a really similar vibe. I do hate ChatGPT for this, and I try and actually write my individual emails in separate chats to try and stop it doing this. But if you say, hey, write me an email sequence, you can find that they have the same kind of format, the same length, be like paragraph, 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 call to action, maybe a sentence at the beginning, but they'll all be a really similar length and a similar kind of style. So even though they may be saying different things, they are appealing to kind of one type of reader. And I always recommend, if at all possible, when you are doing social media posts, where you are doing emails, is that you try and write them in different ways. Something might be super factual, straight to the point, like looking at, hey, this is what's in the program, ding, 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 and sort of, very bullet point formatted. Some might be more story and emotionally hook driven. Some might be more about testimonials and experiences and talking about different things that you've done. Some of them might be more visual. So you might do some emails that are really, heavily going onto that visual and graphic element, screenshots of the program, mock-ups, things like that. So that's appealing to people who will see things before they will actually read them. FAQ emails. Are you doing something where you're actually answering people's questions? Like, these different formats can have a bit of a pattern interrupt, and not everyone is going to respond to your emails in the same way. And sometimes it can be, if you're not getting ChatGPT to write them, is that you write every email how you like communication. And there's multiple different ways that people in your audience like communication, and multiple different reasons that people make decisions. Some people are emotional decision makers, some people are factual, some people will be like, am I going to get a return on investment if I, buy this program? Like, there's a lot of different ways that people go into making decisions. Sometimes, put my hand up here, the last minute Nellies that need that push at the end, the emails that you don't want to send because you're like, oh, I don't want to annoy anyone. There is a reason why people have that cat graph where at the end, you get this huge spike at the end. As much as in that bro marketing land, we hate countdown timers and deadlines. They are there for a reason, and they work for a reason, because it's like, hey, this thing is closing. Are you doing it? Are you not doing it? Because, as of tomorrow, you're not going to be able to come in. So if you are wanting to make a decision, now's the time. Some people need that push, and often I will find those are the hardest emails to send, especially if the launch hasn't worked as you want and you haven't had that many people sign up. You can start feeling the feels, and you can start resisting selling because you're worrying that you're annoying people, and you can think, oh, if I'm already annoying people, no one wants this. And those are often the most important social posts and the most important emails. And that is for the actual launch event registration, as well as for the actual sales cart. And when you've got to go through that twice and you can experience that, it can be really challenging. So something that I always recommend doing is have those emails scheduled before the launch, if at all possible. Do not be relying on yourself to push those emails out. If you're going to send 3 emails out on the last day, schedule them before you even open the cart, so you can't kind of chicken out. You can certainly leave some room for adjusting and changing, but just make sure that you are putting those in there from a strategic perspective. You are not going to be annoying people. If they don't want to get your emails, they are adults. They can unsubscribe, and that's okay. If they're going to unsubscribe, they probably wouldn't have purchased anyway. And if you choose to, you can add in those unsubscribe messages throughout your sales campaign and say, hey, if you don't want to hear about this anymore, click here and you'll still get the regular emails. So please don't stop promoting. But what I would suggest to do is take an audit of all the promotion things that you did during your, your pre-launch, your actual webinar or like event registration, and the actual launch. How many emails did you send? How many, other forms of promotion did you do? If you had affiliates, how many were they sending? How many people clicked through from those emails? Like, what were the numbers? What was your conversion rate onto the event? What was your conversion rate on the actual sales page itself? So that you've got data to work from. Because if the numbers are saying things weren't working, then you know where to focus, and you're not just going, I don't know. Like if you only had 0.2% of the people who landed on your registration page for your event actually going and registering for the event, then something is off. There is some reason why people aren't going, oh yeah, cool, this is for me, especially if it's free. Like that. That registration should be, well over 20%, depending on how cold or hot your audience is, maybe up to even 50%. So really looking at the numbers to see, hey, what was disconnected here? And on the actual sales page itself, I've done a lot of looking at sales pages and audits, and one of the biggest problems is that you can end up talking too much about what the thing is and not enough about how it is going to benefit someone. Like really calling out to that ideal customer. And often this can be when you want to keep it broad because you feel that that's a safer choice. You're like, oh yeah, but this person might want it and that type of person might want it. And you don't want your sales copy to potentially exclude them. But when you water it down too much, you may find that the copy on your sales page is kind of not really resonating with the people it needs to. So being really clear on exactly what your program does and how it is going to help people and what is the benefit for someone can be very, very useful to increase your conversions. So many times I have done either Kajabi coaching calls or through my various programs when I've done audits and looked at people's pages. The first thing I do is I will get them to tell me about their program. I'm like, all right, tell me, who is this for? And, tell me all the information. Why did you create it? Like, what sort of program is it, etc. And so often I'll find that what someone tells me about their program and who it's for, none of that is on the sales page, or very little of it is actually reflected on the sales page. Because when you just tell someone about what it is that you do, it's very different to when you feel like you have to write marketing messaging. So you can use a tool like ChatGPT or other AI tools, and you can go through that process. So I'm going to tell you, everything about my product and who it's for. Can you ask me questions if you need more information? And can you help me look at some, strong headlines and hooks and benefits to the customer from purchasing this program? Because often if the copy is focused on, it's got 14 modules and all these lessons, and here's the name of the program, but you're not really talking to the customer. You want the customer or the student, the person who's buying this program, to read the sales page and see themselves in it, to be like, oh man, they totally get me. Like, if they totally get me, then of course they're going to understand and be able to help solve my issues. So that's a way, you can use the ChatGPT tool. Something that I always recommend is getting someone to audit and look at your page. I work very closely with Tracy Patterson, and Tracy is a sales and offer coach, and she will often do audits for our clients. She's a conversion copywriter, and she can see stuff instantly. She does it to my pages, even though I've been around and doing this for a while, because when you're doing it yourself and the only person looking at your page is someone in your family, maybe they're not going to see it either, because they're not someone who is used to looking at sales pages and looking at gaps and things that you can improve. So either get someone to, a paid copywriter to look at your page, possibly your emails or your registration page as well, to see for if there's improvements that they can suggest, and or do a brain dump into ChatGPT and be like, all right, help me see what I'm missing here and what I could improve. It could be as well as a messaging misalignment. Like maybe there's something that's missing in the messaging. Maybe it is a straight up launch style misalignment. So Tracy Patterson, friend of the unicorn, she just has recently launched a program called Your Launch Style, which is actually going into that to help you work out the best way that you want to launch. I love webinars, and now that I'm used to them, once I got over that initial scariness of them, that is probably my favorite way to launch. I'm comfortable presenting a webinar and transitioning into that sale, and I help other people get more comfortable with it. But that is not for everyone. There are some people that is just completely not going to be your thing. The idea of doing a challenge or, getting a video production company and doing a, 3-day profit launch formula style video series, you're like, that is not for me. But there are so many more ways to launch that can be aligned with your energy and your business goals. And Tracy's got a fantastic podcast where she talks to a lot of people about launching and ways that you can help work out your own launch style. But she's also got a program called Your Launch Style. I will link to that in the description. And, just remember that sometimes when you feel like you are just pushing and it's just not working, maybe that's okay, because that isn't suited to you. Just because someone else launched in that way and you see someone else has had success, you don't know everything else that's going on in their business. You don't know how many people they have helping them. You don't know what is, their preferred method of communication, because you may be someone who you're like, I don't care what I do, but there will be no video. And that's okay too. There's other ways that you can do it. So it's just making sure that you're aligning the launch style that suits you, and not just doing it because someone gave you a blueprint and you bought a course or a program and said the only way to launch is this, or you have to, do that way. There are many, many different ways to launch, just like there are many, many different types of programs. They all work if they are aligned with you. Okay, lastly, when you are looking at your launch, if it did not work, consider things that are not in your control. Consider things that you don't necessarily have actual data and stats on, so that you can look at how to improve it. That is external world events. Are there things going on in the world that have rattled people? And right now, that is potentially the case. There is a lot of change happening politically in the world. And when things happen to make people a little bit more cautious about their spending, then there's downflows into what we are doing. It could be that people need to have more trust in you, that you are the person. And maybe it could be that window from when they hear about you to when they purchase could be longer. Maybe it could be that you really need to focus. I mean, I'm a big believer anyway that you should incorporate as many trust factors as you want, testimonials, really strong guarantees, those kinds of things. But you might have to lean into it even more heavily, pull out every kind kind of trust factor that you can. Try and give people as much as they want, because remember, when someone's buying a digital product, essentially they're buying something intangible. They can't see it and often experience it before they buy. So you can look at doing things like perhaps, opening up access to the first module of a program so they can actually go in and experience it. And Kajabi have introduced a course paywall feature recently, which will allow you to do exactly that. You can do it for a period of time. You could be like, all right, for the next 7 days, I'm going to let you experience this for free. So you can then make a choice. Like, you can see what it's like for yourself. And anything that you can do when people are feeling a little bit unsafe to help them feel safer with their buying decision is absolutely crucial. You can look at really making sure that your guarantee, what you are offering to people if they find that they are unhappy, is rock solid. And maybe it'll mean that, you do end up giving a few more refunds, but it's also likely that anyone that you are giving refunds to maybe wouldn't have bought in the first place without that refund. And maybe there are other people where they needed that refund to feel safe, and they've made a purchase that they otherwise wouldn't if you didn't have a really strong customer focused guarantee. Anything where you're going to make people jump through hoops in order to get their money back is, that's going to make it harder for someone to feel safe. Anything where you are just like straight up in the next, however long it is, 7, 14, 30 days, you're unhappy for any reason, let me know and I will refund you. That's going to make people go, okay, all right, well, I'm not 100% sure if this is going to be the right thing that's going to help me, but since I know that if I do go in there and, it's not for me, I can get my money back. All right, I'm going to do it. That may be the thing that pushes them over. So really just make sure that, I think you should be doing this all the time, but especially focusing on this when things are a little bit unstable in the world and people could potentially have a little bit less discretionary income, or they could be more judicious about their purchases to make sure that they feel safer. And sometimes your timing can just be really, unfortunately, unlucky, and it may line up with a, terrible negative event that is happening in the world, and you've planned this launch out for months and you picked that week, and that week, everything went to the crap. That is why I always tell you, please, please, please remember, this is one launch. This is just one launch. Whilst it may not meet expectations, that can be devastating, and it can, all the feels. I totally understand the feels. I really, really do. It's one launch. You can launch again. You don't need to launch again the next week. You can give yourself a breather. You can look for some ways to change, improve, fix, etc. Get the data, but it's one launch. You will launch so many more times. Like, I am hoping that you're here building a sustainable business that you'll still be running in 5, 10, 15 years. So over that time, you're going to be launching again and again and again and bringing more people into your world and going through this process. So it is not like if your launch didn't work, your whole business is a failure. It's just that launch didn't work. You can look for information to be like, all right, what would I change next time to make it better? So going through that launch debrief can be really helpful. The last thing that can be a data point to help you make better decisions is actually go to the people that you launched to and ask them why they didn't buy. The earlier after your launch that you do this, the better, because it may still be top of mind. So it could be within the week after you launch. You could just send an email, maybe to being like, hey, and you could choose just to send it to the people who clicked on something, so you know that there was some kind of interest there, or you could send it to everyone that you were communicating with and be like, hey, I noticed that you didn't buy the program. Would you mind letting me know why? Or I've just got a really quick 3-question survey, and send them to something where it is either multi-choice or it is very small, quick questions. And not everyone is going to reply to that. Obviously, if people are busy, there's a lot going on in people's worlds. Like, that's why it's so important to make sure you've got as many methods of communication that are getting out to people as possible during all those registration points when you want someone to do something. But ask them, can you tell me why you didn't buy? Sometimes the results will be surprising. I remember one launch doing a post-launch survey, and the number one reason why people didn't buy is because they didn't know that it was. They didn't even know I had launched. I was like, are you serious? I sent like 8 emails in the last 3 days. How could you possibly not have known? And that's the thing, because for us, it is all about the launch. We are all about the messages and the launch and the emails and the promotion. It is number one thing in our mind, and it is taking up almost all of our brain space. For the people that you are promoting to, they've got zero brain space for this. They may see things come in, they don't read them, they're busy, whatever it is. And that's why I just say it's so important to really look at how many messages you send out. What did you do to make sure that you were doing everything possible to get your messages in front of people in potentially different ways, so that they can't come back and go, oh, I didn't even know you were doing something. But also appreciate that that's okay too, because you will have a heap of people, maybe whatever you were saying didn't resonate with them. Maybe they don't need it. And you can go back to them and say, hey, would it be okay if we had a quick chat and I can ask you some more questions if you want to kind of dive into it further. But that is a great way to see if there is a pattern. So when you get those responses, please do not change anything based on one person saying one thing. You want to look for patterns. You want to look for multiple people saying the same thing, because you can be like, oh, okay, all right. And it's another data point to lead into all the data points that can help you make the decisions on what to change going forward. Because you do not need to burn everything down. You are not a failure. You have launched. You have launched. Like I said, so many people don't even get to that point. So please make sure to congratulate yourself, especially if this is either your first time launching or you are launching a brand new product. When you're doing it from either of those places, you are getting baseline data from your launch. You are getting the information that you need to take forward. So please make sure to pat yourself on the back. It is a lot of work that goes into it, regardless of outcome. And even if you didn't hit the results that you want, you still did it. You've potentially grown your list. You've grown your trust and credibility with the people on your list through that event. And potentially the next time you launch it, they could be ready. They may just need a longer period of time. There may need to be more people in your world in order for that to be more successful. There are so many factors that can go into it. So, don't feel like you need to change everything. Look for the things that you feel will make the biggest difference and tweak and change next time. And know that tweaking and changing and improving is something that you're going to do for every single launch that you do. It's how we get better and how we grow as people. And, putting the reps in is the thing that's going to help you get better at launching. It is not a natural skill. It is not something that generally we do all the time in life. And there are lots of different parts of launching to learn, and the more we do it, the more we are going to get better. That is my thoughts on launching. If you've got questions, or if there is a situation where you would like me to cover it on This Is What I Do, please do let me know. You can follow along on YouTube. There is a playlist for the series, or there is a podcast as well. You can register for the podcast and also for a daily reminder if you want to know when I will be going live at theunicornadvisory.com/this. And you can also access the resources that I mentioned during the show. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about something that's dear to my own heart and dear to a lot of people that I know in the industry that are kind of struggling a little bit right now. So this is what I would do if I was desperate for a break, but I didn't want to ghost or burn down my business. I'm going to be talking through some strategies about that tomorrow. I'm Sue McLachlan from the Unicorn Advisory. Thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you again very soon.